Welcome to the Resilient Woman Leadership Podcast, where professionally minded women explore the art of grounding into the powerful foundation that makes us resilient leaders in business and in life. I'm your host, Kathryn Regganie, and I believe that when we women connect deeply with our truest selves, we can collectively shift our leadership culture towards compassion, cohesion, and true creativity. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode where I get to talk with Liz Hodge. Liz works with women and the LGBTQ communities who hesitate to fully voice their unique inner genius that is needed so badly in this world today. And it's frustrating because they have a big story to share that's burning up inside of them. Together, they reclaim their big, bold voice so that they can stop shrinking, speak up everywhere, and deliver their transformative message and move their audiences into action. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, great. I'm really excited to have this conversation too, because I think for women everywhere, it is challenging to speak up and let our voices be heard. So I'd really like to understand a little bit more, Liz, about what brought you to this specialty. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a long, winding road for sure. I come from a musical background. I'm a classically trained singer, and I've taught singing for many, many, many years. And I started to have people coming to me for singing, but what they really wanted was to improve their voices for speaking. And so there was a gap there. So especially with women and the LGBTQ community, women were especially coming to me, especially older women, more mature women, going through perimenopause, through postmenopausal. As their voices were changing, they were really losing confidence in their voices. And so, and as someone who's gone through that myself, it's really become quite a focal point in my practice, is really helping women to learn the tools to rediscover their voice and just really kind of bolster it so they can have more confidence when they're speaking. And then as far as the LGBTQ community, gender affirming voice, finding a voice of choice and really being able to speak with that voice, feel confident in it, and stand up in their power there.
I think that's such an amazing aspect because regardless, your voice is your power in a lot of different ways. That's how you really communicate and stand in that power that we all have an innate right to. And society, for whatever reason, doesn't always agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the thing is that when I work with empowering speakers and singers too, because that's a different way of expressing what is coming from within. And really our voice is basically, it's the second thing that people notice about us. First, it's the appearance, and like it or not, we get judged on our appearance. Mm-hmm. And then we speak, and like it or not, we get judged on our voice. What does it sound like? How are we articulating ourselves? Those types of things. How are we expressing ourselves through language? And that can be very empowering, or it can be very shrinking. And so I love working with people that have just kind of felt very blocked from their voice, because they do have great stories to tell. Everybody has what I believe is an inner unique genius. And that inner unique genius is kind of expressed internally, I think, first, through what I like to call our bigger voices. So these are the voices that oftentimes, especially in women, we tend to they tend to get subjugated. They tend to get pushed down. And that is really kind of damaging, really, to our inner selves, because we're denying our gifts. We're denying what we really have to say to the world and what we have to share with the world. And so that's where I like to kind of hone in my coaching is, what was that tipping point? Why did you call me? Kind of a thing. What is making you want to speak? What is making you want to speak now? And usually there's some kind of tipping point in someone's life. I like to use the analogy of someone who's like a healthcare coach, or they become a nurse or a doctor. It's usually some kind of health issue that they've had themselves, or they've seen a family member go through, and that's their tipping point. I became a nurse because my mom went through, whatever she went through, or I went through this thing. So I started researching it, and I just knew that I had to do this. I knew I have to pursue this. And so those are your bigger voices that are calling you to this work in the world. And so that's what I love to work with, and then have people really learn how to express that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You were talking about, how women are often suppressed. We're not allowed to have our voice. And I think it's really important, because just thinking back, in my roles, several different roles in life,
Yeah.
especially in corporate America, I remember going in and just being really, really quiet, because I didn't feel like I had a voice, because I wasn't even sure what I was doing yet.
Yeah.
So, as I grew that voice, you just feel confident in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are pushed down or minimized, there is something, it's like your voice and your confidence are like connected in a
Yeah,
lot of ways.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's somatic. I take a somatic approach in my coaching and teaching. And the voice is very much connected to our inner selves, because it comes from us. It's not, I like to use the analogy as well as like playing an instrument. We're not playing piano or playing saxophone where you push a button or you push a key and the sound comes out. It's coming from us. It's integral to our being, and it's our main way of communicating. So it's very important that we really connect up with our voices through our bodies, not just the left brain. We tend to kind of get up into our heads, especially in the corporate world. It's a very left brain kind of male type of culture. It's changing slowly.
Slowly,
We're getting
slowly.
there. We're getting there. And the thing is that you were mentioning earlier that we tend to subjugate, or we tend to be quiet. And really, this is millennia. We're not talking about something that's recent. This is something that's really in the DNA of our culture, in Western culture. I mean, you can go all the way back to the Greeks and the Romans and how women were silenced. And it's just been the same since, so every once in a while there's a voice, we can talk about some of the voices that have, called out to women. Angela Davis, Gloria Steinem, Rosa Parks, all of these
Right.
voices, that have called to us and say, hey, we need to be speaking up. We need to be expressing what we need in the world and what we can give to the world. We're here to make a contribution. And we sometimes, from our culture, we tend to hold ourselves back.
We do.
It's like, oh, I don't know. There's kind of this uncertainty about expressing ourselves fully, because, well, we don't know if it's going to be accepted or not, or if we're going to be, told, oh, stop your, believe me, I've heard this. I actually had a client who said, from a voice coach, your voice sounds like an air conditioner.
Oh,
so yeah, so so we're constantly being silenced or quieted because of you don't have anything to say. Your voice is too high, too low, too shrill, too this, too not enough of this, too much of that. You know,
yeah,
we all
exactly.
know that. We all know that cycle. It's like you're too aggressive. You're too, this or that. Instead of
Exactly.
you're bossy instead of being assertive. You know,
Yeah.
the
It's really interesting though. I was just thinking as we were talking about, it's through the millennia and women's voices being quieted. We were just in Asia, and this was a conversation I had with our tour guide in China. In China, we were at the Forbidden City
Mm.
with the last emperor and things like that. And I was talking to this woman because the last emperor, I don't know how many people know this or if I have this exactly right, but the last emperor's mother was one of the women from the concubine.
Right.
And because the last emperor was so young, I said, so was it the mom who actually ran the country? And the tour guide basically said yes. Because the emperor was too young to make some of those decisions.
Right.
And we had this really interesting conversation, and she goes, yeah, she was considered a dragon lady because she had the power and the confidence to carry out this huge role, yet she didn't have the power.
Right.
And that's what was considered, women with that powerful image in Asia were considered dragon ladies or dragon women. And it wasn't a good thing. And yet, like this year is the year of the dragon, and most Asians wanted children, sons, not daughters, because it's not good for a daughter to have that dragon power, which I beg to differ because I like dragons. I think women should have their dragon power and live fully in it. So I
Yeah.
think it's a really interesting, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the Asian culture where dragons are a positive
Mhm.
thing, and the energy of a dragon is a positive thing. Where in Western culture, it's Saint George slays the dragon kind of a thing. Um,
Right.
so yeah, so it's very important that we start to really stand in our power from a vocal point of view, and so gaining the tools to express ourselves well, really finding that tipping point and building our stories around that tipping point. That's where we want to kind of go, because that's really what draws your audience in. So speakers really have two jobs. It's to make connection and create curiosity. Those are the two jobs that speakers need to have, right? That's really all. If they don't want to, your audience doesn't want to know your methodology.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, the story. Yeah, it's well, just very quickly. I was at a speaking gig several years ago, and I come from an education background. I've been an educator most of my life, and I was so excited. I wanted to tell them everything I knew, and this is how I work, and this is what happens, and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of it, the organizer went, "Wow, that was a lot of information." And I kind of went, "Oh, not
You didn't
good."
like it. Yeah.
I didn't make any can I like I had maybe two people that were interested in my program, and it was kind of like, oh, I felt like,
Yeah.
and,
Oh,
you know,
TMI.
yeah, it was just kind of, yeah, exactly, too much information, but I didn't make any connection. I didn't create any kind of curiosity about, how to work with me further, or what else did I have to offer and contribute. So So those are two main things that speakers really need to make sure. And it doesn't matter if they're entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You really need to make sure you're making that heart connection, because your personal story, that's what makes the connection. It's an exchange of energy. And if you're just giving methodology, you're just kind of blocking off that two-way communication. Even though your audience isn't speaking, there's still two-way energy that's going on. And
Yes.
yeah, and so that's what you want to do when you're speaking, is you're creating that kind of energy. And it's a real give and take.
It is. And, I really love how you said that, because I just pictured myself, because I do speak as well. And I have a lot of energy practices under my belt as well. So it's almost like when you're speaking, instead of speaking through your mouth, speak through your heart. Like the
Exactly.
noise is coming out of the heart area, and really make that connection, because, it's the energy in the room is what makes the connection. The vibration or the vibrato of your voice
Yeah.
helps make that connection. And when you can make that sort of, for a lack of a better description, but sort of emanate from your heart, that just makes it so much better.
Oh,
And it's really interesting, you were talking about it, like even professional women, and when you're sitting in a meeting and you're in that adrenaline fueled male mess of energy,
right.
just being able to ground yourself into that and get into your heart and speak with the confidence, the calmness, the clarity, and sometimes even curiosity about where other people are coming from, so that decisions can be made in a better, more focused way.
Oh, for sure.
And it's really interesting, just me saying that. A lot of times, because I was in corporate America too, I was the only woman in the room. So I didn't know all of this back then. However, just knowing that I could have been a better anchor, just being in me and trusting myself and trusting my voice
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
to sort
Yeah.
of
And that's,
ground out all that maleness.
I don't want to pin it, on, it's like, oh, that's the guy, the guys, but unfortunately, that's kind of the culture that
It
developed
is.
over a long period of time. So that's one of the reasons why I really focus on the somatic work, is really getting the breath down into the hips, really
Yes.
kind of, and working the voice from the pelvic, the supporting it from the pelvic floor, so really kind of getting that body connection and using the resonance of our voice. It's really skeletal, it's in
Yes.
there. If you put your hand here and you go, ha, you feel it, there's
Yeah.
a vibration there, right?
Yeah.
And
It's in your bones.
yeah, it's in the bones, literally in the bones, so using the body to produce the voice, it's the breathing, it's the support, it's the resonance, it's the tone, it's the inflection, pacing, all, the nonverbal communication, all of that kind of stuff, all put together, to create the kind of uh, speaking that we want to produce, and the kind of communication that we want to produce, because it all comes together. It's all.
Yeah. I love it. I love this conversation. So, Liz, as people are listening to this and they might be interested in connecting with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so they can email me at liz@lizhodgevoicestudio.com. And on LinkedIn, just look for Liz Hodge. Yeah, you might need to put in, voice studio or something like that.
And this
Uh,
will all be on the show notes as well. So
yeah, so I can send you the actual link, that they can
sure.
find me on Instagram, Liz Hodge _studio. Yeah, I have a website. It's in development right now, but
Nice.
yeah, yeah, we're getting there. It's not pretty yet, it's
Well, that's okay.
it's
It
pretty
doesn't
good.
always need to be pretty right away.
Well, actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be www.lizhodgevoicestudio.com. So it'll be
Perfect.
very pretty by the time
Awesome.
you get there.
Excellent. Excellent. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much, Liz. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope to stay connected.
yeah, definitely. I'd love to do it again for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Resilient Woman Leadership Podcast. Remember to take my Dragon Woman quiz at dragonwomanquiz.com. In just 2 minutes, this fun quiz will reveal your Dragon Woman and connect you to the resources so that you can leverage her power for good. And if you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe now so you can hear more inspiring stories from other resilient, wise women who will uplift and inspire you. Your review really matters to me, so please gift me back by reviewing this episode. Want more, Kathryn? You can find me at energy-pathways.com.